Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Modern Customer Podcast. I'm your host, Blake Morgan. Today, my guest is James Reinhart, the CEO and co founder of ThredUp, one of the largest online resale platforms for apparel, shoes, and accessories. James's passion for circularity and the role that education plays in our communities is what drives his vision of reducing the fashion industry's negative impact on the planet. James is a graduate of Harvard Business School, where he earned a joint degree in public policy and business. He lives in Oakland with his wife and his 3 children. Today, we are talking about leveraging modern technology such as AI to enhance the customer experience, creating a delightful customer experience, something we always talk about in the Modern Customer Podcast, from pre-order to post-order, how to approach trade-offs, and doing right by the customer without compromising your bottom line. We'll be talking about circularity and secondhand and how that is impacting retail and beyond. Please enjoy James Reinhart. James, welcome to the Modern Customer Podcast. It's really nice to see you today.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're here. We're talking about something that I'm personally passionate about, which is clothing. I am one of those people that, has the bug for retail therapy, but I know it's bad. I know it's so bad because I also care about the environment. So we have a lot to talk about today.
Yes, yes, indeed.
Where are you based right now?
Our corporate office is in Oakland. So we have people all over the world, but Oakland, California is where I am right now.
Where exactly are you? Because I used to live in Oakland.
Our office is downtown, so 9th and Broadway, and yeah, I live in the Oakland Hills, so I
Yeah,
have a short commute, and I'm here all the time.
that's awesome. I used to live
Yeah.
at the Broadway Grand, like
Oh, is that
literally right
right?
there. Yeah, like literally. All right,
That's funny.
awesome. Well, we have a lot to cover today. Just listening to you speak and watching interviews with you, I love just how much you talk about the customer, and that's what we
hmm
talk about on this show. It's all about the customer. I heard your origin story, but can you share for our viewers who haven't heard it how you came up with the idea for ThredUp?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, the true founding story is, back 2008, 2009, I was in business school. Prior to business school, I was a teacher. So we can talk a little bit about that journey, which is sort of interesting. But the implication of being a teacher and then going to business school is I didn't have any money, Blake. And so I didn't have any money, and I had lots of clothes, like you mentioned, and I went to sell them at a local consignment store, and they wouldn't take them. They said, we just do luxury, we don't do men's, we don't do your brands. And it was at that moment, because I remember it so vividly, it was a J. Crew cashmere sweater, it was a Brooks Brothers coat, and I thought to myself, like, this stuff can't be worth zero, right? It's got to be worth something. And that was the moment where I thought there was a market failure, right? If this stuff was valued at zero, there was just something that was not quite right around the way the secondhand clothing market worked. And that began the journey of kind of reimagining what resale and secondhand could look like. And I've been at it ever since.
Right, because you were early on a trend that the whole world would be interested in secondhand eventually because of fast fashion and how toxic we now know it is for the
Yeah.
planet. How fast was it for you to go from idea to 1,700 employees and I'm a publicly traded company?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Often we kind of look at companies and they appear like they came out of nowhere, and the reality is that behind the scenes, companies were slugging it out for a long time. So, I think when we started the business, uh, definitely the feedback I got from investors, from the markets, from my friends was, "Oh, that's a cute idea." Right? Like, but there was nothing that I think in the early days would have suggested that ThredUp would be on the journey that it was on. I think the difference was that I just fundamentally, and my co-founder Chris and I think we just fundamentally believed we knew something about the world that we think people didn't quite understand. around the resale market and the opportunity. And like, there's that joke about founders and entrepreneurs that, you need to be contrarian, right? You need to understand something that other people don't know, and then you need to be right.
Right.
And whether you're right or not kind of gets proved out over time. But it certainly was very tough early on.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, you have to be a futurist in a way. You have to see things that others can't see. Do
Yeah,
you
and
think
a
that
little lucky, a little lucky too, right?
you were lucky? You think you were
Yeah,
lucky?
I think entrepreneurs, generally speaking, underappreciate the luck that's involved, right? And there are certainly people that came to work at ThredUp that we caught them at lucky moments in their career, right? Investors who we caught them where they were, for whatever reason, they started to care about this category in a way that might not have been true a few months earlier. And I think there's a lot of those types of things that line up for companies to be successful, and I think we benefited a lot from that.
So, can we talk about the state of the modern customer? Like,
Mhm.
James, do you think that the world is just ready to have all secondhand everything? Because we know how unhealthy it is to keep creating new and new and new and new.
I don't think that we're ready for it to be 100%, and I'm not sure that the average closet will ever be 100% of any kind of one type. I do think you're starting to see real momentum in what we define as closet share, right? Which is the percent of a person's closet that is secondhand. And every year that we talk to customers around what percent of your closet is secondhand, what percent of it is specialty brands, what percent of it's fast fashion, what percent of it is rental, right? There's a whole number of things that we ask people. Every year it seems to indicate that people's closets are more and more secondhand. And I think that speaks to a couple things. One, you mentioned, is the sustainability piece, which I think is real. I don't think we're going to go back to a world where people are like, I don't want to be sustainable. I want gas guzzling cars, and I want to burn coal, and I want to take it out of the ground. Right? It's hard to imagine. I don't want to recycle. Right?
Right.
It's like hard to imagine the world going backwards.
Yeah.
And then the other piece is once people have the experience of shopping secondhand, right, an incredible brand that they love at a price that is better than they could ever afford to have purchased it new, it does change your perspective on new pricing. And my daughter, I just got my daughter a pair of Doc Martens on ThredUp. We've been looking on ThredUp. They sell so fast, and we finally got this pair of Doc Martens, and we paid like 60% of what we would have purchased them retail, and they were practically brand new. And it was just a reminder of, once you have that kind of experience, it's awfully hard to go back and pay retail. So I think those two trends are powerful.
Right. So I read in your report, the 2024 resale report from ThredUp, that the secondhand apparel market is actually outpacing the broader retail sector. Is that true? Can that be right?
From a growth rate perspective, yes, for sure. If you look at the sort of the broader retail industry, for the most part, it's flat, right, or growing, modest, low single digits, and resale continues to grow much faster than that. And our business grew double digits last year, compared to a broader retail industry that really, in many cases, brands were shrinking, right, and then some had some modest growth. So yeah, that is the math, and I think we've seen that a number of years that we've done the report, and we expect that to continue.
So let's hear the hardest part of the logistics of
Yeah,
reselling the customer something that someone else has already owned. What's the
yeah.
hardest thing about it?
Well, I mean, so like, just imagine, Blake, you're in a distribution center, these bags that are full of clothes, right? So the average customer bag that gets sent to us, a clean out kit is what we call it, has 30 pieces of clothing in it. We have no idea what brands, what categories, what condition. We know nothing about the bag when it comes in. And that's really the value proposition to the consumer, is you don't have to do anything. Just stuff it in a bag and send it to us. And so we are then taking those items out of the bag, figuring out the quality, the brand, the category, what are the right attributes to resell it. the sizing, the seasonality, right? So we're really turning this bag of clothes, right, into individual resale items that can be bought and purchased by a new buyer. And so that process is a bit of alchemy for us, and that part's hard to get it right. We don't have stock photographs from the brands, so we're taking our own photographs. And so anyway, those are the things that are hardest. And then for luxury items, we authenticate them to make sure that they're of the right provenance, and so that part's hard.
That would seem really hard. And as opposed to like a Sephora where I've heard they have warehouses that literally don't have humans in them, like I think
Yeah,
it's called like pick and pack robots. Like you're not there
yeah,
yet. You don't have
yeah,
robots
yeah.
helping you sort.
That sounds really nice and easy. Yeah, yeah. No, we've got lots of hardworking folks in our DCs, and obviously we use a lot of technology in our facilities. But at the end of the day, right now we have a lot of associates in our facilities making those choices and trying to do that as efficiently and humanely as possible.
One of the things I think about a lot is, especially as a mom, are the transitional periods of
Sure.
life and the clothing. So like kids, like how many kids' shoes do we go through in our house? I feel like I'm
Yeah.
constantly buying shoes. Or even when I
Yeah.
was pregnant, I did rent clothes and send them back. But these
Yep.
periods are baby clothes where you're literally putting them in your kid in those clothes for 2 months.
Yeah.
And they just
Yeah.
get donated to someone. But it seems like there's a lot of value there. But they might
Yeah.
get worn down quite a bit as well, like kids'
Yeah,
shoes.
yeah. I mean, things get worn out, but I think one of the areas where ThredUp really has excelled in serving the customer is those life transitions, and that I think you hit on a few of them, right? People who may be pregnant, and then after you have the baby, right? Sort of what does that look like for you as a parent? Um, People moving and getting a new job, right? So maybe they need a different set of attire for a new career. Maybe you're moving to a new climate. You need a different set of attire for a new climate. Maybe you're graduating from college, right? And you're getting rid of your college t-shirts and sweatshirts and hoodies, right? And you're moving into a professional wardrobe. So I think at all these moments, ThredUp really is a great place. I think the kids thing you mentioned is really interesting because that's how our business actually got started. So despite me having the personal problem with my clothing, what we identified in the market was kids was a really great spot to start. In fact, our first tagline that we ever copyrighted was "Clothes don't grow, kids do,"
Yeah.
and it was all about the kids business. And we still have a large kids business today, but I think that was the first insight around this.
Yeah, I would say that that would be a big obvious market to me if I were you and ran your business.
Yep.
One big thing that seems like it would be really hard is what do you do with all the clothes that you can't resell? They're not in good enough condition. Do they get donated? Do you send them back?
Yeah, things that you never thought you'd really understand about the apparel markets when you get into this as an entrepreneur. There are sophisticated channels for clothes that get rejected. So we reject about half of what people send us. Typically, that's from a quality perspective, right? So stains, missing buttons, and so forth. Of that half of stuff that we reject, a bunch of it can be resold, but in a way that is more of a group. So we have something we call rescue boxes, which is something that a customer can purchase online, but it is, say, a box of 20 pairs of jeans, right? All of which have some sort of defect, but people really like it for crafting, right? Or they're willing
Oh.
to buy jeans and turn them into cutoffs,
Mhm.
or kids and teens are willing to buy them and then put patches on them or bedazzle them or whatever it is that kids do these days to jazz up their clothing. So we try and do a bunch on the rescue side, and then a lot of the clothing that we reject also, it's got a pen mark or the heel is broken or something, but it can be resold. It's just hard to resell online. And so we actually then partner with a number of domestic charities and thrift stores where we put that in those stores. And then just to take you all the way through it, because I think sometimes people find this interesting, Then there's a small part of the market that's called the wipers market. And it's actually like you take cotton pulp and you reconstitute it as rags. And those are the rags that, get used at Jiffy Lube, for example, or any, one of the cleaning places that use a lot of rags. And then the last part, and for us, we typically see this as under 5% of what we get. That ends up, can't do anything about it. It ends up in a landfill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, seems like you're doing a pretty good job
Yeah, we're
helping to
trying.
reduce
Yeah.
the carbon footprint of the world. What for you is the most exciting growth opportunity in this whole idea of reselling things that other people once had? What's the big growth area that people should be paying attention to?
I think the most exciting thing right now that I think is really customer-centric, customer focused is how we're using AI to improve the product experience. And so one of the number one things we hear from customers that try ThredUp and don't ultimately become customers is, hey, I searched for something, I didn't get the results I wanted, or I looked for something and you didn't have anything, or it's too hard to find, what I want. And over the last few months, we've been working hard with new technology that we've been developing around AI search, which allows the customer to find what they're looking for. And I'll tell you, it is so much better than what we had before as far as the product results. And it's using visual search and identifying and tagging the items in ways that I think are really, really cool. So for example, like if you went on to ThredUp and wanted to search for an outfit for St. Patrick's Day, right? For this past weekend, you could, on the old search, you would put in St. Patrick's Day, you get no results because we would have to be tagging something in our distribution center as St. Patrick's Day. And, we're processing millions of pieces of clothing. That's a very hard thing to do manually. Now with this visual search, AI search layer, you get thousands and thousands of results because the search can pick up shamrocks, it can pick up leprechauns, it can pick up the green color. It can do all of that in ways that we couldn't do it before. And I think that's a really exciting opportunity for us.
That's really interesting. I just see so many use cases for this too, like beyond retail, like what you're talking about. Let's switch gears and get a little nerdy to talk
Sure.
customer shop. James, how often are you talking to customers? Are you looking at the customer data? Are you working or listening to the contact center and what they're up to? Like, how much is that a part of your work month?
Yeah, work month. I would say about 10% of my time is sort of actively engaging around what the customer is experiencing, on the site or in their experience. So I have a pretty tight feedback loop with the customer service team. As part of our onboarding process, we're reaching out to customers and asking for their feedback. We have a UX and research team that's doing customer interviews, every week. So I stay pretty close to it because I think what I've learned over the past, 10 years or so is that customers are really good at telling you what problems they have, and you really need to process those problems like, in some large numbers to really identify where the company can target its solutions. Customers are not as great at telling you what to build, right? And so I think it's really understanding the pain points. And so I try and do as much of that as I can because I just think that improves our product development process so much faster, right? It's really not like what we should build. It's really like how do we serve the customer.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm pretty involved.
Could you paint the picture of what that looks like? Like, are you looking at large data sets? How are you seeing these big problems? Are you talking to your head of customer service and they give you a report? What does it look like?
Yeah. Yeah. We take both. I personally take definitely a rigorous quantitative look. I mean, we've got a couple million customers these days, and so we're definitely looking at behaviors around how they're engaging on the site. We have real-time dashboards for everything that's going on, and it's kind of amazing. You can really see the friction points in the customer experience. You can see when our pricing is not quite working or we've introduced a new feature. And so definitely a quantitative where I'm working with the product teams, the data science, analytics teams to understand the funnel data and the customer experience there. And then qualitatively, yes, as I mentioned, it's talking to the researchers, it's talking to the customer service team, And we have a active sort of online chat feature where customers are interacting with our agents, and that provides a lot of feedback for us. So we try and find that balance of as one of my board members describes it, sort of magic and logic, right? Magic and logic, and how do we apply both, right, to serving the customer?
I love that. Do you have a persona or do you have multiple personas for your customers?
We have personas for sure, though we focus actually, Blake, more on using the jobs to be done framework. So less persona driven and more job driven. And by that I mean we certainly serve customers who might be characterized as millennials who live on the coast, who have a child at home, who right. But what I think unites a lot of our customers is that job to be done, and whether that's
Can you just actually tell for our listeners or who haven't, isn't it, it's a book, right? Jobs to be done.
well, yeah. So there's the jobs to be done framework. It was something. There is a great book that Clay Christensen wrote on the innovator's dilemma, innovator's disruption, right? Disruptive innovation. And his book was really, I think, foundational for how people thought about this. But yeah, the idea is that as a customer, you have a job to do, and that job you hire, quote unquote, hire products to make progress on that job. And so the classic example that Clay Christensen provides, and one like I think your listeners would enjoy reading, is about product innovation at a fast food restaurant where they were designing a new milkshake, right? And he goes through how what they learned in the research was that the milkshake was super popular in the morning, like 8 a.m. And what they found was that the job to be done when people were buying milkshakes at 8 a.m. was they had a long, boring commute. So it was like kind of nice to drink a vanilla milkshake. It was a large milkshake, so it was filling, right? And so by the time they got to work, they were full. They believed somehow that if they were getting some protein right through the shake, and depending on what they put in it, like it could be modestly healthy. It fit in their holster, like in their car, right? So it was kind of easy to do while they were going to work. And so I think the point that Christensen makes is that the job wasn't to drink a milkshake, right? The job was that I want to be full when I get to work. I don't want to be all messy. I don't want to eat a bagel or a donut while I'm driving to work, right? And I want to have something that's really easy for me to do while I'm navigating traffic.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the classic example, but we apply that to many of the things we do at ThredUp.
Yeah, that makes sense, James. Like, what is the person I'm serving trying to get done? It's like you're walking a mile in their shoes. Like,
Yeah,
did they
yeah,
move? Did they just have a baby? Are their kids' feet growing faster than anything? So I
yeah,
think that's really interesting. It's really empathetic to think, well, what is my customer going through right now at 8 a.m. as they drink their milkshake? For us now,
yep.
it kind of sounds silly because I think it's out of fashion to drink a milkshake for breakfast. But I mean, it's smart. And my milkshake is like a protein. I love that.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. But all
let's
the protein shakes really got innovate. There was a lot of innovation around that kind of insight, right? Of what people are
I
trying to
mean,
do
they
for.
taste like milkshakes now, really.
They
They're
do.
delicious. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, I would say you're a customer-centric CEO. You say you spend 10% of your time thinking about the customer, involved with data, customer
yeah.
data. What advice do you have for other entrepreneurial leaders that want to be more customer-centric? What is one or two things they can start doing to be more customer-centric leaders?
I mean, I hate to state the obvious, but you have to talk to customers, right?
Hmm.
And I think that, and you have to engage with them. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to sit on a 30-minute call with the customer, but I think engaging with how the customer is providing feedback and hearing it raw, right? I mean, I love when customers email me directly because I hear straight from them, and then I'm able to reply. And some of the best experiences as a founder and CEO is getting that direct customer engagement, because it makes me feel like I'm really working the problem as the customer is experiencing it. So I do think that direct contact is really important. I think the other piece is learning what a customer is doing but not saying. And
Ah,
so
yes.
I think trying to understand, we do a bunch of work at ThredUp where we're watching how customers navigate the site.
Oh, neat.
And, and we're using, heat maps and funnel data. And I think really being attuned to what the customer's not saying, but like their behaviors really show you what's happening. I'll give you like an example. I mean, literally today, my co-founder and I were talking about something in our product experience. And it's something, so I'll give you like the product experience. So this is something that we show to every customer as part of a sequence of things they have to do to check out. And only 2% of customers pick this thing. And yet we show it to 100% of customers. And so Chris, my co-founder, and I were having this conversation around, there's got to be something wrong with this, right? If only 2% of people are engaging with something that we show 100% of people.
Mm-hmm.
And so is it a product market fit question? Is it a positioning question? And so we really look at the data and then we ask ourselves, some of the bigger questions around what the customer is doing and not saying to us.
I love that. That's really interesting. Can you just say quickly how you're using a heat map?
Yeah, so we think that if we just put things in front of a customer, that they obviously will see everything. And I think it's a bit of a fallacy of like, we'll just change the navigation or update the homepage or add this thing into checkout and everybody will see it and use it and it'll be obvious and it's all going to work. And the reality is most consumers don't pay attention to anything that you're doing because they have a job to do. And their job is to do the thing they came to your site to do. They don't care about this other thing that you want them to see or talk about. And so we use heat maps as a way to show what customers are clicking on, what's the density of those clicks, where are their cursors, right? There's a bunch of technology you can use that can go from no creep factor to way creep factor, right? On like how you're tracking.
Yeah.
But I find that stuff it provides like some quantitative data to what ends up being a lot of opinions. And so that's why we use it.
That's really interesting. I really like that. That's really valuable. Hey, James, let's get to know you a little bit before we let you go. Are you ready to take some quick rapid fire questions?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay,
Let's do it.
perfect. Let's start. What's the most important part of your morning routine?
I mean, my morning routine, I try and wake up early and do some reading that is non-work related. And so whether that is reading fiction or reading a book that I'm just generally interested in on a nonfiction basis, the reading part I think settles my mind before I get into my day, because the minute I open my phone and start checking email, like I'm on the work train. And so I try to be on the personal reading and be an interesting person train first.
That's really great. I hear more and more people say that. What show are you currently streaming?
I'm streaming 2 shows because I think all of us, it's like the golden age of television. Like I don't know who just watches one show anymore. There's so much great stuff out there. I'm I'm watching that show Griselda on Netflix because I somehow, for whatever reason, I like watching shows about drug traffickers. I don't know, my wife gives me a hard time about that.
We all do.
Yeah. And then I'm watching the 2nd season of Full Swing, which is the Netflix show about the PGA. Because I'm a golfer, in my free time, and I think that show is great.
All right, cool. What is your favorite leadership book or resource?
I think the most important book for me ever is a book by a woman named Joan Magretta called Understanding Michael Porter. So Michael Porter is sort of a foundational, business thinker, professor at Harvard Business School. Joe Magretta wrote a book that's the Cliff Notes version to what Michael Porter has talked about. And I think that is a book I pretty much make everyone at ThredUp read it. So I think that one's great. And then the other one is I love 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, the Patrick Lencioni book, which I think has been around 25 years. And I think still is a great read.
Okay. What's your idea of perfect happiness?
I think the times when I'm like in a total state of flow, I am in nature and I'm probably either running, riding my bike, doing something outdoors where I'm not connected to technology. So I used to be a runner who ran with headphones. I don't do that anymore, right? I just So I try and find that zen. There's incredible running and riding, here in Oakland in the East Bay. So that's my happy place.
Nice. Okay. What is your favorite type of vacation?
I think for vacation, I have to find the balance of some beach time and some like city fun, doing stuff like out, being in the mix. So
Mm-hmm.
I always try and find, I can only sit on the beach for so many days, but I absolutely love it and need it. And so I love the ocean. I grew up near an ocean. I live near an ocean here. So for me, like I have to find a little bit of water, and then I love the urban environment. I like going out to eat. I like drinking coffee in good coffee shops. I like going to shows.
Mm-hmm.
So a little bit of those two things is important.
All right, nice. If you could have lunch with anyone dead or alive, who would it be?
I would probably want to. I was a like part philosophy major as an undergrad. I think it'd be great to have dinner with Aristotle or something. I think that'd be kind of cool.
All right. And lastly, if you had to describe your outlook in one quick motto, what would it be?
Say yes to the world.
Oh, very good. Well, this has been really interesting. If people want to learn more about you or ThredUp, what's the best way for them to do that?
I think you can find us online at thredup.com. There's no A in ThredUp, so you got to spell it correctly or incorrectly depending on your point of view. And then I think we're available in lots of stores, and there's lots of awareness about where we are and what we're doing, but we encourage people to check it out.
All right, James. Well, thank you so much for being a guest on The Modern Customer. I hope you'll come back and tell us what you're up to next year.
Thanks for having me.
Everybody, you've been tuning into the Modern Customer Podcast. Until next time. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and follow me on social media, including LinkedIn, Instagram, and X.